Right now, there's a voice in your head. Maybe it's reading these words along with you. Maybe it's already commenting on them. Maybe it's somewhere else entirely, replaying an argument from last week, rehearsing a conversation you haven't had yet, narrating what you're doing as you do it. You talk to yourself constantly, and you've probably been told at some point that this is a little odd, maybe embarrassing, maybe a sign of something going wrong. But what if it's the opposite? What if that voice is one of the most sophisticated tools your brain ever developed? The scientific name for it is inner speech, and it's not a quirk. It's not a bad habit. It is a fundamental feature of how the human mind actually works. Psychologist Lev Vygotsky was the first to study it seriously, back in the 1930s. He noticed something strange in children. Before the age of about 7, kids don't just think. They talk out loud to themselves while they think. A child building a block tower will narrate every move. This one goes here? No, that's too big. I'll try the red one. For a long time, this was treated as a primitive behavior, something children grow out of, something adults suppress. Vygotsky thought the opposite. He believed that when children stop speaking out loud, they don't stop talking to themselves. They just take the conversation inward. Inner speech isn't the absence of external speech. It's what external speech becomes once you no longer need to move your lips. And the brain agrees. When you engage in inner speech, when you hear that voice in your head, your brain doesn't treat it like passive thought. Brain imaging studies show activation in Broca's area, the same region that fires when you speak out loud. Your motor cortex gets involved. Subvocalization, the faint muscular movements in your throat and tongue, can be detected during silent reading and inner speech alike. In other words, your brain is partially treating your internal monologue like an actual conversation. The machinery of language, the same hardware that lets you talk to other people, is being turned inward, aimed at yourself. Which raises an obvious question. Why? Why does a system built for communication turn around and talk to the self that built it? The answer starts with something called cognitive scaffolding. When you talk yourself through a problem, okay, first I need to do this, then that, if X happens, I'll do Y. You're not just narrating. You're restructuring. You're taking something formless and giving it shape. Language imposes sequence on experience. It forces the vague and simultaneous into the linear and ordered. And once something is ordered, it becomes manageable. Studies by psychologist Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan found something striking. People who use their own name when talking to themselves during stressful situations. Okay, Sarah, here's what you're going to do. Perform significantly better under pressure than people who use first-person language. What am I going to do? Feels like drowning. What are you going to do, Sarah? Feels like getting advice from someone who knows you. The slight distance of the third person reactivates your capacity to think clearly. You stop being inside the problem. You become, briefly, a consultant on your own life. But the utility of inner speech goes deeper than stress management. In 2012, researchers Gary Lupian and Daniel Swingley ran an experiment. Participants were given a visual search task, find a specific object in a scene. Half of them were asked to say the name of the object out loud while searching. The other half searched in silence. The ones who said the name out loud found the object faster. Significantly faster. This shouldn't work. You already know what you're looking for. Saying banana out loud when you're already thinking about bananas seems redundant, but it isn't. Vocalizing the word, even internally, activates a richer network of associations. It sharpens the perceptual template your brain uses to recognize the target. The word doesn't just describe what you're looking for. It helps your brain see it. This connects to something even stranger about how memory works. When you narrate an experience to yourself, I parked on the 3rd floor near the elevator, you're not just registering the fact. You're encoding it in a form that's far more durable than raw sensory input. Language turns experience into story. And story, it turns out, is one of the formats the human brain is best at retaining. Psychologist Jerome Bruner spent decades arguing that humans don't just think logically, we think narratively. We impose protagonist, conflict, and resolution onto the events of our lives. And inner speech is the primary tool we use to do that. The ongoing monologue in your head isn't a distraction from your life. It's the mechanism by which you turn your life into something you can understand and remember. Which means that the voice in your head isn't just commenting on experience. It's constructing it. There's one more layer to this, and it's the strangest part. Inner speech isn't always a single voice. If you pay close attention, it often feels more like a dialogue. One part of you argues for something. Another part pushes back. One voice is cautious. Another wants to take the risk. Psychologist Charles Fernyhough at Durham University has spent years studying this phenomenon. His research suggests that inner speech often has what he calls a dialogic structure. It simulates conversations, takes on different perspectives, argues with itself. This isn't a malfunction, it's a feature. When you imagine how someone else would respond to your idea, when you anticipate an objection before you've spoken a word, when you talk yourself out of a bad decision by playing out how it ends, you are using inner speech to simulate other minds. You are running social predictions inside your own head. The voice that criticizes your plan before you execute it, that's you modeling your harshest colleague. The one that encourages you when you're exhausted, that's you modeling whoever in your life believed in you most. Your inner monologue is a cast of characters, and you wrote all of them. So here's what's actually happening when you talk to yourself. You're using the most powerful cognitive tool humans ever developed, language, and turning it inward. You're scaffolding your own thinking, regulating your own emotions, sharpening your own perception, encoding your own memories, and simulating the minds of everyone who has ever shaped you. The voice in your head isn't a sign of loneliness. It isn't embarrassing. It isn't something to suppress. It is, in a very real sense, how you think at all. Every decision you've made, every problem you've solved, every moment you've talked yourself off a ledge or talked yourself into something worth doing. That voice was there. And it wasn't just narrating. It was building the person doing the narrating.